The Royals set a new franchise record for home runs in a single game on Sunday. Do we believe that'll spark the offense? We'll dive into it in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners, here's how this show works. We bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes, as well as 60-second recaps after each game, unless I'm caught up in something like I was on Friday, didn't have the time to run home or really step aside and record that 60-second recap, but you can pretty much count on every single night to see a 60-second recap on our YouTube channel. And these episodes, as I mentioned, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether you want the video part on YouTube or just a typical podcast listen like an Apple Podcast or Spotify. But we like to bring them after the game. Tonight's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be out at Kauffman Stadium. I'll be down in the clubhouse afterwards. I'll be, interviewing some players and, of course, Matt Quatrero right after the game. So since I'll be out there, then I got to make the drive home. Then I'd have to record. Wouldn't be able to get you the episode till about 1 in the morning. So I thought I'd just bring an earlier episode today and might have to do the same tomorrow. But I usually love to do those episodes after the game so we have a fresh take on what just occurred wherever the Royals may be playing. Now, before we dive into tonight's episode, let's give a shout out to the title sponsor, which is Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. Well, it wasn't the best thing for this podcast that a record-breaking night happened on a weekend when it was on a Sunday. We don't do episodes on Sunday. And since it was such a big ordeal, since it was such a big thing for this offense, I thought, well, it's pretty fitting that we can actually use today to have an earlier episode, then wait to see what happens tonight in the Chicago game. Because that can't go unnoticed. That can't be something we just gloss over. What the Royals did on Sunday was truly remarkable, and it came from an offense you'd least expect it to come from. I mean, to have 7 home runs in one game, and to think that going into Saturday's game, they had 15 home runs as a team. I mean, you had some individuals out there across the league that were in double digits for home runs already, and yet the Royals as a team were sitting there with 15. And then on Saturday night, they have a barrage late, in getting home runs from Kevin Biggio, Vinny Pasquantino, and then it was Kyle Isbell, I believe, had the third one of the night. And then they take that into Sunday and homer 7 times off of a variety of Orioles pitchers. And I understand that Baltimore's pitching staff is one of the worst in the league. They have had serious problems in keeping the ball in the yard. I want to say they are dead last in baseball in home runs allowed. So it has been a catastrophic start to the year for Baltimore, and we knew that going into the series. What I did find that was a great improvement about this series compared to previous ones is the Royals started game 1 in pretty much the same way they had started a lot of their bad losses this year, which was the rotation. Michael Wacha, his start on that night, he was fine. He did great. He had a quality start, but the offense against a lackluster pitcher, and Dean Kramer among qualified arms, had the highest ERA in baseball. He shuts them out through 7. And the Royals really don't threaten in the 8th and 9th, and you get shut out by one of the worst pitching staffs in all of baseball. It felt very similar to previous games in previous series this year where game 1 would go like that. But they responded in a way that I wasn't sure just yet they were capable of doing. And I understand Baltimore has had a bad start to the year. They still have talented players. They still have a top 5 MVP player in Gunnar Henderson, a reliable center fielder in Cedric Mullins. They still have Adley Rutschman. Ryan O'Hearn has been a great piece for them, and he was fantastic in this series against the Royals. They have guys that can play in that lineup, and their record is more so about what their rotation and their bullpen have done. Still, with a bad rotation and a bad bullpen, the Royals had not shown this year they could just bludgeon those teams. I mean, Colorado, they swept, but even the doubleheader, I mean, the offense played well, and that was against some really poor pitching, but it's not that they just bludgeoned them from start to finish. That's what I saw on Sunday. When you get 7 home runs and you get a 2-home run game from Maikel Garcia, you get a home run from Luke Maile, who was called up, in the blink of an eye before this series began because Salvador Perez is still nursing that hip injury. You are having everybody pile on top of these pitchers. And I said this in the recap on Sunday, and I'll say it again here. If that's not a game that gets your offense going, I don't know what game it would be. I mean, you're talking about a franchise-breaking day where you smash 7 home runs, and not many of them were gimmies. In fact, I don't believe there was one that was truly a gimme. Maikel Garcia went over the bullpen in left field, the extended wall. Bobby Witt Jr. went into the bullpen. Massey and Pasquantino crushed theirs as well. Luke Maile hit his 415 feet. I mean, everybody was jumping on every pitch, it felt like. And what's even more important, and I'll add this into I wasn't sure they were capable of winning a series like that where you drop game 1 and don't even score against the worst starter you were going to face on the weekend. I wasn't sure they were going to be able to overcome a lesser start from one of their great arms in the rotation. And Michael Lorenzen, I do want to be clear here. I'm not worried about what he did on Sunday. That was a left-handed heavy Orioles lineup, and he just made one too many mistakes in the zone to those left-handed hitters. He made a mistake to Mullins. He made 2 mistakes to Jackson Holiday. He made a mistake to Ryan O'Hearn. I mean, it's going to happen in the same way we just saw it for Baltimore as well. But to respond from that, where the Royals are going back and forth, and then the Orioles actually take the lead 5-4, and they respond on the first batter of the next inning, which was Maikel Garcia. And it's just back and forth and back and forth. But in the end, it was the Royals' offense that was too powerful for Baltimore's bullpen. I mean, they were able to chase Kyle Gibson from the game. The majority of their damage was done off of Baltimore's bullpen. And I'll add to that 2 of the 7 home runs came off of Yennier Cano, who was great on Friday night and also hadn't allowed a run on the season. You are getting guys back into the groove. You are getting the meat of your order really involved in the run production part of things. Even the bottom of the order is starting to make some waves. Drew Waters is hitting 282. He had a big time at bat in Sunday's outcome as well. A 2-strike, 2-out, just flare to left center. It was an easy and simple swing, and it was a big reason why the Royals were able to take some of that offensive momentum into the later innings. Kyle Isbell's hitting above 240, and you can just expect him to do that. And even more so to that, you are starting to see this Royals lineup take shape a little bit. With Maikel Garcia, who we're going to talk about in the second segment, with him heating up in the way that he has, being one of the most valuable third basemen in all of baseball and leading all of third basemen in batting average, you now can just pencil him into third. We're not worrying about where Garcia is going to play. He's an everyday player. We know Bobby's at short. We know Vinny's at first, and Vinny's had a nice couple of games here. Salvador Perez has been red hot, even with that hip injury he's dealing with. Freddie Fermin is now hitting over 260, and he's been on a spurt of late. Michael Massey homered and had a 2-hit game on Friday. Like, Jonathan India's gotten better, and now you can keep him in left field. And Drew Waters has started in 16 of the last 17. So here's how the lineup is starting to turn out. Here's how it's starting to look. And last year, where it was MJ Melendez in left and Isbell in center and Hunter Renfroe in right, I believe we're starting to see a turn from that which is Jonathan India is going to be considered one of your everyday outfielders, and that's more production than you got from that spot last year. Isbell will be in center, but maybe a platoon guy, where when there's a lefty on the bump, Waters goes to center and Mark Canha goes to right. I start to see, I have to squint a little bit, but I'm starting to see what this offense and what this lineup may look like on a daily basis as we get deeper into the season. And you are seeing some growth and improvement from guys you needed to see improvement from. Maybe nobody bigger than Maikel Garcia. But what they did yesterday was extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, let's dive into this hot start for Maikel Garcia. If we believe it, and if it is true, what can that mean for the Royals lineup? We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to the title sponsor today in Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, for half off on your first year. Maikel Garcia has been maybe the biggest star for the Royals to begin the season. And I say that with Bobby Witt Jr.'s 22-game hitting streak that was unfortunately snapped on Friday, so my prediction of taking it to 30 was way off. And I even said on Mailbag Friday, I never want to bet against him. And lo and behold, that night, he loses the hitting streak. But Bobby's been phenomenal. We know how good he's been. And even though the power hasn't been there just yet, he's hitting over 300. He is doing what you expect him to do, which is why I pivot to Maikel Garcia and say he has been the bright star. He is leading the Royals in average. He has played elite defense over at third base. We've seen him at second. We've seen him in center. We've seen him get moved down in the batting order to a middle-of-the-order spot because no 5-hole or 6-hole guy was giving the production, and he's only gotten better. And last year, I did find it interesting that once the home runs started to add up, there was a change in his swing, and then the slumps lasted longer. We knew he was never going to be a walk guy, but he just wasn't seeing many pitches in those slumps. He still saw on the year a good chunk of pitches. That's a little bit of a misconception about Maikel Garcia last year. It was more so in those slumps, there was the ambushing, and there was the 2-pitch outs. There were the rollovers, the shortstop, the soft grounders, the second, the pop-ups, and it clearly was impacting his play. But you have seen a change that he worked with Alex Zumwalt with in the offseason. He stayed in Kansas City instead of going to Venezuela to play in the Winter League. And there's a more patient version of him now. He's got a 9% walk rate, which is up 3% from last year. He's seeing more pitches. He's not overly aggressive. He's still aggressive, but he's not to the point where every 2-0 count, he's swinging no matter what. He's waiting for his pitch. And the numbers were always supporting. Last year, the year before that, he was going to hit the ball hard. And even if he was slumping, even if he was struggling, those numbers were going to result in the averages going up. Because if you hit the ball 108 miles an hour in 3 out of your 4 at-bats, even if you go 0 for 4 one night, the odds are going to tell you the next time you do that, maybe 1 or 2 of those are an actual hit. And the numbers are going to go up. It just didn't happen for him last year. And that's the oddity in baseball, is you'll have those guys that Baseball Savant really supports. The website that every baseball guru loves to use, the hard hit rate, the barrel percentage, the squared up percentage, the chase rate, all of that is at your disposal. And MJ Melendez is one of those guys that had a decent baseball savant page. It supported some of his underlying numbers. It just never amounted to much of the big leagues. Maikel Garcia had it in 2023, which put him onto the scene. And then last year, those numbers didn't back up his play. He was getting on base at like a 280 clip. It's not good enough from your leadoff hitter. And it does bring out some curiosity in me with this change in the lineup. If moving him from the leadoff spot to the number 5 spot, the number 6 spot, has benefited his approach. When you are a leadoff hitter, there is so much pressure on you to get on base, to be the guy that can draw the walk, can work the count for 7, 8, 9 pitches. And that was a part of his game. But when you're slumping, you really do feel like you're out on an island. And when you've got Bobby Witt Jr. hitting behind you, it becomes even more pressure to get on base because it takes away what Bobby Witt Jr. does so well if you're not. I mean, he's always coming up with nobody on. He drives in runs at an incredible pace, especially when he's red hot. So bringing in Jonathan India allowed them to make that move. And even when India's not playing, we do see Garcia at the top of the order. But this overall shift in what he's done has made him a tremendous player for the Royals. And the best case scenario for this team is that he becomes their second best player when it's all said and done. If you have that on the left side of the infield, that can really make you start to dream about the ceiling of this team and what they could be moving forward. Because for how many years have we just been able to pencil in, Bobby Witt Jr. is the best player. Then you got Salvador Perez and Vinny Pasquantino. Like, those are the guys, right? Those are the core pieces. Well, Salvy's not going to be doing this much longer. Eventually, Father Time is going to slow down Salvador Perez. And that's all right. And that's fine because he's already been much better than what I thought he could be at 34, at 35. He's a catcher that has had to learn first base and is still hitting better than most catchers out there. Like, Salvador Perez is an anomaly. But we have to understand that for this team to be good for not just 2024 and 2025, they're going to have more young talent. And Jack Caglione is starting to make an impact at the minor league level where you can squint and see him being a part of that core. Hell, I'll take that back. You don't have to squint. You know that he's going to be a part of the core. Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be a part of the core. You want to believe it with Massey, and you want to believe it with Kyle Isbell. Maybe some of you don't. I get that as well. But Maikel Garcia is the third youngest player on this team. He is 25 years old, and he's going to be around for a while. The Royals have club control over him until 2030. And if he starts to become this 4-WAR player, this 5-WAR player, he's pacing for a 6-WAR season, which I doubt happens. But with as good as he is defensively, he could hit 260, and you're talking about a 3 to a 4-WAR season. If he hits 300 this year, you are talking about a 5-WAR season from your third baseman, maybe even more than that. And so you start to see the future of the Royals. It's what became their detriment, their downfall in 2014, 15, and 16, or I should say 16, 17, and 18. Their core was all the same age. And when they got older, they weren't, just pumping out young talent all the time from AAA to the big leagues. There was no fast track there. When their core was done, their run was over. Their window was closed. And that's why in these final years of Salvador Perez, he's still considered to be one of their better players. And Seth Lugo and Waka are a part of that as well. Carlos Estevez is their closer. Ursig, is a guy that's still under club control for a couple more years. But they have guys that are not going to be there 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And not that you're operating to be the best version of yourself 3 years down the road. You're focusing on winning now. But to have these pieces where next year, the year after that, you're not having to worry about where Bobby Witt Jr. is, where Vinny is, where Maikel Garcia is, where Jack Caglione is. They're going to be in Kansas City. Where Cole Reagans is, he's going to be in Kansas City. Where Chris Bubich is, Kansas City. And building that young talent now and pairing it with the older talent on the roster, it can prolong this window. where you have multiple chances to get to the World Series and win it. And hopefully this is just the beginning. This second year of true contention, it's only the beginning. But if they strike gold, and this really is the ceiling of Maikel Garcia, they've got something special brewing over at third base. Okay, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's preview this upcoming series against the Chicago White Sox. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our final sponsor we want to let you know about is one of our newer sponsors here on Locked On Royals, and that's Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, with experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. So visit Upwork.com and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com, Upwork.com, Upwork.com to connect with the top talent and grow your business today. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I will be out at Kauffman Stadium tonight, so that's why I'm bringing you a little bit earlier of an episode. I'll still be posting my 60-second recap later on tonight, no matter how this game goes down. But since I'll be going down in the locker room, down in the press conference room, getting audio after the game, probably wouldn't start recording until 11:30. Then you factor in 30 more minutes for editing. You would not be listening to it until about 1 a.m. or the next morning. I know for some of you, you enjoy that. But just for my schedule, this works out a little bit better and might do the same tomorrow in recapping tonight's game over those 3 segments. But we'll see how it all plays out. I promise you'll be getting all 5 episodes this week and all of those 60-second recaps. But it all begins tonight with Cole Reagan's back on the bump, of course. He missed his start last week in Tampa. That was when Noah Cameron filled in and threw 6 1/3 no-hit innings for this team. But it's good to know that all they needed him for was 1 outing. Now you can, almost put him on the back burner for a little bit until you were to need him again. But adding Cole Reagan's back to the rotation, that's the best case scenario. And maybe down the road, Noah Cameron does join the rotation or joins the bullpen. But first and foremost, what matters is that Cole Reagan's will be taking the ball tonight. I'm not sure if he's going to be on a pitch count, but all we can hope for is he gets through it healthy, that he looks back to form, that he looks like the old Cole Reagan's. And he's going to be going up against one of the weaker lineups in all of baseball. And I will say this about the White Sox, and I put it out there on Twitter this morning. They are not a good baseball team. We can get that out of the way. I'm not any genius or guru in saying a 10-win baseball team on May 5th is not very good. They are also much better than what they were last year. Now, I know that's a very low bar to clear, but the Colorado Rockies, who the Royals saw a few weeks ago, that's the worst team they're going to play all season long. The White Sox are the worst American League team, and I'm not sure if the Marlins, when the Royals see them, will be the second worst in all of baseball, but since they're in the National League, you don't need to worry about it. They're going to see the White Sox a lot. But what is different about this White Sox team is they have a much better rotation. They were piecing together that rotation last year, and there were a lot of guys making starts that probably shouldn't have been making starts at the big league level just yet. But they've done a good job in assembling a rotation that has a lot of good, young, cheap talent. And that begins tonight with a guy by the name of Shane Smith on the bump, who was a Rule 5 pick. He went to college at Wake Forest, so you knew he got good competition in the ACC. But this year, a 2.23 ERA and 32 1/3 innings, 26 strikeouts, so not much of the strikeout type, but a whip that's below league average. And a 25-year-old, maybe they struck gold on this Rule 5 pick. We've seen the Royals do it before in the past with Brad Keller for a point in time, and then, of course, Joakim Soria. But the White Sox, in a year where using the Rule 5 draft is vitally important, they seem to have, at least early on, hit on someone like Shane Smith. Last year, the Royals would be facing, who do they have in the rotation for a chunk of time? They did have Garrett Crochet, who they hung on to, and then they flipped him in the offseason to Boston, but you had to worry about him. Then they had Chris Flexen in there for a little bit. Flexen was never that good. Mike Soroka, who did land a deal as a reliever this offseason. There were some guys that were trying to find themselves, where this time and this year for the White Sox, they have more young talent that's trying to stick around in Chicago. So the Royals, of course, have never seen Smith, and that's a little bit concerning considering the Royals' track record against guys that don't have much on them. There's not much of a scouting report on him. And I'm not trying to say the Royals are going to get shut out tonight. But if he is pitching well, I believe it's going to be a little bit of a combination of they've never seen him, and he's also been pretty good this year. But Shane Smith is somebody I like. I've watched him a few times with my MLB TV account, so I have been pretty much impressed with what he's been able to do for the White Sox. Again, 1-1 with a 2.23 ERA. Now, in Game 2 of this series, the Royals will send Seth Lugo out to the bump, and man, has he been impressive over his last handful of starts. And the stuff is almost playing up a little bit more, in my opinion. I feel like we've seen somebody that kind of like he did last year when he got on his roll and he still had a lot left in the tank. Now, second half, when he started to wear down, you weren't getting as many starts like that. But the spin rate on his curveball feels like it's high as it's ever been. The fastball and sinker seem to be playing more so 95-ish, 94 to 95. The cutter and sinker, that's kind of around 91 to 92. I think I said fastball and sinker was 94, 95. I meant to say the cutter is playing more so to 91 to 92 with more control. He's been phenomenal, and this feels like a very advantageous matchup for him and all of the Royal starters. I mean, they've got the second lowest ERA in the American League. Their bullpen has the fourth lowest ERA in all of the American League. So we all know how good they've been, but specifically Seth Lugo, I've just been wildly impressed. And as for the White Sox, they're going to send another guy out there that the Royals are not familiar with, and Sean Burke. So far this year, a 4.91 ERA, 33 innings pitched, only 25 strikeouts and a whip somewhat around the league average at 1.36, but no Royal has ever faced him. As for the White Sox, they don't have great numbers off Seth Lugo. Brooks Baldwin is 0 for 3. Andrew Benintendi's hitting 286 and 7 at-bats. Luis Roberts 0 for 7 off Seth Lugo. Josh Rojas is 1 for 4 off of him. And then Michael A. Taylor has the most experience against Lugo, and he is hitting 091 and 11 at-bats. Andrew Vaughn also has just 2 hits and 9 at-bats against Lugo. So that will be the Tuesday matchup. On Wednesday, because this will be a 4-game series, Jonathan Cannon, who the Royals did see last year, he will toe the slab against Michael Wacha, who's now 1-4 with a 3.52 ERA. As for Jonathan Cannon, he's thrown 38 innings this year, 4.26 ERA, 32 strikeouts, has dealt with a little bit more base runners, 1.45. In his last outing, though, he did have a quality start against the Houston Astros, 6 innings of 2-run balls, struck out 5, and allowed 9 hits in that one, but didn't have too much damage from that Houston lineup. And then he also threw 7 2/3 of 3 earned run ball against the Athletics back on April 26th. So he will get the ball on Wednesday. And as for some Royals that have seen him in his career, which would just go back to last year when he made his major league debut, they don't have the best numbers other than Michael Massey and Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. is OPSing 1.071, and Massey's actually OPSing at 1,500 against him in 6 at-bats. But Benny Pasquantino, 125, Salvador Perez, 250, and Hunter Renfroe hitting 200 off Cannon. And then on Thursday, this will be a afternoon game. Chris Bubich, who now has a sub-2 ERA at 1.98, he will go up against Davis Martin, my favorite pitcher from the rotation for the White Sox. Really, really nasty stuff. He's got a 3.52 ERA in 38 1/3 innings, 26 strikeouts, a whip of 1.36. In his last go-around, he did allow 3 earned on 8 hits in 5 innings, but he did have back-to-back shutout innings against the shutout outings, against the Athletics. He went 6 innings there and struck out 5 and walked 2. And then against the Twins, he threw 5 shutout innings. He struck out 3 and walked 3. So that will be the Thursday game to wrap up the 4-game set against the Chicago White Sox. So Royals at 19-16, Chicago White Sox at 10-24. I will be leaving as soon as I edit this, and we'll be out at Kauffman Stadium tonight. But as for us, that'll do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to recap what happened tonight and look ahead to Tuesday night's game. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.